Are you a fan of Summon Night? Or more specifically, the Swordcraft story spin-off titles on Game Boy Advance? If so, then Maglum Lord may in fact be the game that you've been waiting for. Welcome back to Experience Points, a less formal, more laid-back sort of series of reviews where I talk about games that I've played a little bit of but haven't yet finished, and today we're taking a look at Maglum Lord. Full disclosure, I was sent this copy of Maglum Lord for review a couple of days ago by P-Cube. That said, they have no say in what I say and don't get to see this review before it gets released. And as proof of that, I can say after about 5 hours or so that Maglum Lord is, personally speaking, not my cup of tea. But just because it's not for me doesn't mean that it's not for you. Maglum Lord is a spiritual successor to Summon Night Swordcraft story games, created by some of the original team behind the Summon Night series. It's a hybrid of a few game genres that could be most quickly summarized as a mix of both visual novel and Tales of Phantasia style gameplay. I reviewed Summon Night 6 several years ago, and the visual novel side of things instantly felt similar. The character designs are definitely interesting and have a certain cool factor to them. During the VN segments, the character profiles are minimally animated as wiggle transforms are applied to certain portions of the character drawings. This animation style is an aesthetic that does not really add anything to the experience overall for me, but it's minimal enough that it doesn't really detract from the experience either. Maglum Lord starts off by giving you a choice between two protagonists, which are basically male or female versions of the same character concept. Your protagonist is a demon blade lord who is able to wield maglums. Maglums are a sort of sword that is able to kill demons and gods in this world. Usually only humans can wield these, which is why demons and gods recruit heroes in order to fight their opposing sides, because gods and demons can't actually harm each other, with the exception of the titular Maglum Lord. Gods and demons don't like this though, so they banded together to take the Maglum Lord out of the equation. For a time. Several years, likely aeons, have passed, and the world has changed, and our Maglum Lord awakens to a somewhat modern, peaceful human society. The Maglum Lord awakens from a centuries-long coma, drained of power, only to find that they are now on the endangered species list and will be monitored by the agents of the current government. This whole story is kind of a lot to explain, but the setup is pretty fun and it reminds me a lot of watching The Devil as a Part-Timer, and it feels like it's got a very similar brand of humor. Long story short, defeating enemies helps our Maglum Lord regain their powers. Unfortunately, when the Maglum Lord transforms to battle, it uses more power than they gain from battles. So, what's a Demon Lord to do? Why, transform into a sword and then be wielded by someone else, of course. So that's where the heroes of the story come into play. Of course, the heroes don't want to wield the Demon Lord, but they also need the Demon Lord's power to fight the magic beasts that assault the city, so they all just decide to work together despite having clashing ideals. The visual novel segments often give the player the opportunity to choose one of three possible responses to various conversations that come up, often dividing the answers into three main categories that affect your character's personality and sometimes their interactions with other party members. And best of all, each section is clearly labeled which stats it affects, or whose affection you will be increasing or decreasing. This will likely be important later on in the game, as it's hinted at early on that there will be romance involved later on, so including characters going out on dates. From what I can tell, the visual novel mechanics seem pretty solid, and if I were into visual novels, there's probably not much here that would really turn me away. I'm not into visual novels though, and while reading some of these cutscenes play out, I found myself getting impatient with the character actions being told like a radio drama rather than being shown, but I suspect that that's something visual novel fans are accustomed to. The game progression takes the form of accepting requests, many of which are as simple as watching a visual novel cutscene play out, and others introduce completely different hack-and-slash mechanics when your protagonist and crew are sent out into the world to fulfill requests, such as collecting items from shining spots on the ground, defeating X number of certain enemy types, or taking out boss-type enemies. When you are sent into the world, you explore these dungeons with enemies on them that you can bump into starting combat. It seems like you're able to attack enemies from behind in some cases, but I haven't noticed a real benefit to getting a drop on any of the enemies in this case, and the weapon range makes it really tough to actually do, or the hit detection is just really narrow. In either case, the mechanic is probably not worth worrying too much about. Once combat begins, it's a side-scrolling affair similar to the Tales titles, where you have the ability to mash the attack button, jump, double jump, and change between weapons that you can forge and customize outside of combat. Different enemies are weak to different weapon types, and each weapon can have 1 to 3 decorations applied to them that can affect different stats such as enemy effectiveness, status effect resistance, elemental damage type, stat boosts, visual changes, and so on. Unfortunately, the combat here so far hasn't shown itself to be particularly deep. Players can also use skills and items to recover health and boost defenses and such, but combat primarily amounts to picking one of 3 weapons that you have equipped and then going to town mashing away racking up combos. Combos add multipliers to your experience points received after combat, up to almost doubling your experience points received. As you fight, the Maglum Lord's power gauge fills up, and once maxed out, you can summon the Demon Lord to fight instead for a short time. There doesn't really seem to be a whole lot of strategy involved in combat, even against the big bosses that I've run into, beyond simply equipping the best weapon for the job and then running in and bum rushing the bad guy and healing once in a while. This dungeon exploration section of the game feels kinda similar to playing a game designed for handheld systems. It especially feels like playing a game designed for the PlayStation Portable or Nintendo DS. The world designs are pretty basic and fail to really capture my imagination. While exploring dungeons, you can find safe zones which you can use to heal up, shop for new items and armors, and save your game. The overall visuals of the visual novel side of the game is fantastic. The visuals of the dungeon exploration side leave a lot to be desired, and during combat there were noticeable moments of slowdown on the Nintendo Switch. Musically, Maglum Lord is pretty great. No complaints here, and the voice acting in the game is all in Japanese and seems okay. Sometimes the localization seems to be slightly at odds with the Japanese spoken word though, as it sometimes feels like the voice actors will say a paragraph and the English text will only show a sentence. So by the time I'm done reading the first sentence, the VA goes on for another 5 to 10 seconds. So as a result, I ended up accidentally progressing text, interrupting the voice actors, and eventually I just kind of stopped caring about the voice acting and just read at my own pace. If Persona is an RPG with a visual novel tacked on, then Maglum Lord feels more like a visual novel with a hack and slash tacked on. So I think most people who end up enjoying this game will do so mainly because of the story that it tells, the characters that it presents, and the dungeon exploration will probably just be something extra on the side that provides challenges to overcome to progress the story of the visual novel, rather than the other way around. That's not necessarily a good or bad thing, and if that sounds like it's up your alley, then you'll probably love it. For everyone else who might be on the fence though, I might recommend giving this one a pass. And if you're new here, then I might also recommend subscribing because I am Super Derek. I make thoughtful and thought-provoking videos for gamers who love RPGs, and I'll see you in the next one. Have a great day, everyone.